Okay, so planned last day on silence. And I listened to the last minute that I recorded there. And where we ended off was that, what was it? Oh, that would be the irony of ironies. That what the Rambam is describing in Daled is the middle path. And that the middle path is saying only what's necessary. One extreme is saying more than necessary, and one extreme is saying less than necessary. And Rav was a chacham, not a chassid. Because if he were a chassid, he'd be inclining more towards omitting even necessary statements. Unresolved is the issue of whether sicha batela is like the footnote, which is the Rambam's fifth category, which is permissible speech, or if sicha is the fifth category, and then within sicha there's sicha batela. Today, I think that I agree with the footnote because I think it's weird to make a subdivision within that. But that's where I am today. I don't want to get bogged down in that either, though. Okay, then I think, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think that is it. Yeah.
So about our conversation afterwards of how to implement this practically.
Oh, yes. What did we say?
So I think
since it's not recorded, it was not recorded.
Yeah. So yesterday, I think we said that you just kind of like learn ideas that will eventually influence you to be like this.
Yeah, I think I just said like Mishle, right? Is like a good example of like, let's say you have a lot of psukim in Mishle about how people who talk a lot get themselves into trouble, and you have stuff about people who say things that offend people, and you have stuff about psukim about people who speak in ways that are unclear, and that causes trouble. So I feel like the more you learn about those ideas of speech, you will naturally get better at only saying what is necessary in the way that is beneficial and not harmful, and like that'll just happen. I don't think you can do it by force, and the reason why you can't do it by force, I know I interrupted you, but the reason why you can't do it by force is like your speech is a direct outgrowth of your values and your thoughts, and like saying that you could just change your speech instantaneously is like saying you could just instantly change your values, and it's not an instantaneous change. The only way you could do it is like forcibly stopping to speak, which maybe the Rambam would advocate, but I don't think it's going to help you learn the skill of what kind of like how to engage in speech with chachma. I think it might make you realize how much you're talking, but not not really like developing the skill. Yeah.
Isn't that what he advocates with each day of that?
Yeah, and I think that's not the best method. You asking me or you asking what the Rambam thinks?
Well, I guess. Okay, so both.
Okay, because what I think is that you know,
you think that
I mean, look, I don't even think that the Rambam could think that, because if the Rambam is saying force yourself to only say what's necessary in a manner of chachma and in a way that's necessary, you can't force. You need that's like a skill to know what that is, and how you're gonna get that skill is through Mishle. You know,
every day, like where is the middle? Where like when is it good to like spend? When is it good to like that's
right.
Really to develop.
Perhaps, but I think that there are certain deos that there are, like, for lack of a better term, like stereotyped actions that correspond to one, the other, or the middle. Like, you know, in his, you know, putting on rags and stuff, or like being an outgoing person. Like,
so here you can just be totally silent.
Being totally silent, right? Well, that would be going to the opposite extreme. We're saying in terms of getting to the middle, right?
Right. But
yeah, you could definitely.
Right. I'm saying, isn't that how he says you get to the middle?
No, that's if you have a sickness of the soul.
Oh, I see.
Right. Then you go to the opposite extreme. But if you're just a normal person, then you have to do the actions with the middle. Yeah.
Well, a person can, let's say, you know, I say to some extent it's that, but let's say a person can know that, let's say, talking about space is not necessary.
That's not true, though. Or if you need to like be friends with someone, or if you're you know, like if you're a Rebbe in high school and like your kids relate to sports and you have to like, you know, you want to form a bond with them, so you talk about sports with them. See, this is the difficulty, is like you can't just state that and this might be true for all deos, but like certainly in speech, like it's very situational, and what is necessary and what is not necessary is very situational.
I guess how much money you need is also kind of how much money you need to spend, how much money you need to make. You know,
right, that is true. That is true. But see, I feel like with money, even with money, you can do things like put yourself on a budget. You know, that's the thing that is like very behavioral. You know, like I will spend, like let's say I'm used to spending $1,000 a month on on like food, and I want to cut down on food spending, so I just only allow myself to spend $500 per month, and I could do that purely behaviorally. And yeah, there are a bunch of psychological and like cognitive issues that could help or hurt it, but like at the end of the day, I could just forcibly do that. You can't forcibly only say what's necessary without learning all of the skills of communication and what role speech has and what your own emotions are.
I mean, you can't go to a and then give a regimen.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah. And then in that sense, it's more situational than other stuff. I don't know what the best terms to say it in, but if you get my intuition, then that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, I mean, let's say a person goes something and they know that they can tell that this, like, I think, there's some more questionable cases, but a person can let they know that they just, when they go to like talk about sports for 2 hours with a friend and it's not like, and it's not productive in terms of like it's not a productive use of the time or anything. I think there's a certain extent that I judgment, but to some extent that the person, if they know that it's not like a question, I think a person can know that sometimes it's not a question of whether it's safe on the tail or not, and if they know. Well, the person can sometimes know that
You're using a lot of extra words there.
Yeah.
See, no, that's my point. It's like, like you can't do it by force. Like, like.
Well, I'm saying a person can.
Yeah.
That's the thing I'm saying though, is that sometimes it's something that is not something that a person can like necessarily should like decide to do.
Mhm.
The person can decide to not get into a conversation with sports about someone or some other point of conversation.
Yeah. So not to get into a conversation with sports about someone. Talking to football, Ruben and Shimon, yeah. Yeah, but I know what you mean. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not saying that there's nothing you could do through sheer willpower and force. I'm just saying that I don't think that you're going to become a chacham in speech and get the middle daya that way. I don't think it's viable.
I don't know, like if you like feel yourself starting to get into like whatever, like a whole, I don't know, you're starting to like talk about someone,
Mhm.
and then you like constantly stop yourself every time you're about to do that. Like,
Yeah.
does that make it less like?
I just don't think it works.
Wait, so what do you?
Yeah,
think
I just don't think it works. Learning this way.
Sorry,
Yeah.
what's the middle day is.
I'm saying that I'm thinking what I think about
You could do that, right? That's just not the middle.
recognize,
Right.
like, sometimes they want to say something, but by not, like, putting the whole situation with that attention,
Mhm.
they can recognize situations where they say something like, on,
Right.
and they can recognize that the thing that they want, they can say, on that thing.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, this is, yeah.
Are you saying you don't think that's the most effective thing?
I don't think that's the most effective thing. Yeah,
I'm not saying it's not totally effective.
I'm not saying it doesn't do good, but I'm saying that it is not the most effective thing. And what's going to happen is that you're going to like I think there's something else. I'm really I'm doubling down on this because I think that speech is different than other actions. That speech is going to be just a reflection of what your values are in general, and it's just going to come out no matter what. And so I think that to a large extent, if you attempt to forcibly curtail your speech without addressing the underlying values, that's just like addressing the symptoms.
And it doesn't work the other way. Like if you address the behavior or whatever the speech, then it's gonna affect your values or whatever.
I think to a certain extent, then it could, but I think it's just I think it's a uphill battle that is not. That's not the most effective method.
Are you saying that I'm
I'm not saying the Rambam holds that way.
Okay.
I'm still answering Isaac's question about what I think. Yeah.
I want to you say that.
At one point I did say, yeah. I don't.
Well,
Yeah.
Okay, so just to clarify, the middle day here is being deliberate in speech, right?
The middle, that's not how we said it yesterday. The middle day, no, because deliberateness, if you were going to put it in terms of deliberateness, is deliberate, impulsive, and restrained. But the way we said it yesterday is necessary, more than necessary, less than necessary. And I'm not arguing with that deliberateness as a thing. That's just not what we said yesterday. So we can try that out and see if it works.
What's necessary and deliberate?
Deliberate just means you think before you speak. And unrestrained would be you don't think before you speak, and then overly restrained would be that you just don't speak.
Oh, well, if you're actually thinking and you actually, yeah.
Like, for example, there are lots of people who are very silent, but it's not because they are thinking about what is necessary and then choosing to not say stuff. There are people who are just quiet, or who are afraid of speaking, like, and then there are people who just like say whatever's on their mind no matter what, and they will end up saying a lot of unnecessary stuff, but that's not the day. Like there's
So is that like cautious? Like if you're shy, like is that overly cautious in like speech?
it could stem from that, but I think most of the shy people that I've met,
Yeah.
it's not coming from like a weighing of should I say this or not, and then being overly cautious. It's usually coming from like natural inclination. Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of like talking about a character trait, I
Yeah.
don't think. I think talking about the amount of speech is not the character trait, because there'll be an action that stems from a character
Right.
trait. So if we're talking about what the data itself is, I don't think that that the amount that you speak is the data. It could be tied to the data, like maybe inextricably tied to the data, but it's. I don't think that would be the data.
When you say amount, are you referring to the necessary versus unnecessary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
On this or okay, yeah.
I think one way we think deliberate is you keep like this is necessary and unnecessary without being deliberate in the speech.
Right. And that's
the way to be in saying the necessary thing is
right. But I'm also saying deliberateness is different than whatever this data is. Deliberateness is going to be a requirement for being able to act in accordance with this data. Because if you're not thinking before you speak at all, then there's even if you have the right values, it's not going to help.
And that could be a more general, like
Deliberateness, yeah.
action.
Right. You can have Mistun and Bedin. That's the first Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, right? And that's deliberateness in judgment.
So what are we saying? The Rambam saying in terms of how to get to the middle day?
Do actions that correspond to it, and do it
Like-
again and again and again until you get it. That's what the Rambam says. No, he's not saying learn Mishnah. I don't think he's saying learn Mishnah. He's saying do the prescription he gave in the first parak is do actions that correspond to the middle daya and keep repeating them until you get the daya.
Right, so what would like an example of that be in this?
That's what I'm asking Isaac. Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
Wasn't that the chavurah we had with where the comma was about whether they're teaching you things and that's like.
Well, that's for the refuas hanefesh, right? You're asking how you get this data in general.
Yeah.
Because it might be that for someone who is.
I think that could be Mishnah.
What was that?
That could be teaching.
That could be teaching Mishnah, right? But the Ram doesn't say that for the regular course of obtaining data, acquiring data, right? That's just do the actions that correspond to it.
So it's even. You should only learn Mishnah if you have the refuas and nefesh. He's saying no. I'm saying you can't. I'm saying that's not what I mean. I'm saying the prescription for refuas and nefesh is to, learn Mishnah, but just getting the data. That's not
behavioral. It sounds like he's advocating a behavioral approach to that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, and you're now in
Right. It's I think I'm not 100% sure, but yeah.
I think
that's what how I'm inclined to think. I don't know if I actually think that.
I think part of the complication is that we were talking about an action as the data, but the action is not the data. The action is a result of.
Right, but in order to get the data, you have to do actions that are the actions of the data.
Yeah, but I think we should figure out what the data is.
Well, how do we know?
That's what I'm trying to do. Yeah.
How do we know that the data is not the action?
Oh, should I bust it out now? There's that hidden Rambam in the ninth shortcomings.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna read it. Yeah. All right. So this is I mentioned when I was the tip. This is the hot tip, right? About like they won't know about this Rambam, and I didn't know about it. So we're not gonna read the whole thing, but just the in the beginning of the ninth what?
That's the Ambush Rambam.
Yeah. the beginning of the 9th, this is in the Sefer Mitzvot, the rules for what you count as a mitzvah.
How'd you find it?
How did I find it?
Yeah.
Someone emailed me as a hot tip.
Okay.
He doesn't even listen to the podcast. He just saw
Cool.
the topic and he's like, "Hey, I got Rambam for you." You know,
Cool.
yeah. V'dash v'kol tzivuyei haTorah v'av haroseha him b'arba devarim. All the commandments of the Torah are in 4 matters. Okay, 4 things. B'hashkafos, in like ideas, beliefs, whatever you want to call them. Ubama'atim, actions. Ubamidos, and in traits. Ubadibor, and in speech. Okay. So traits and speech, traits and actions are different. Yeah. Okay. V'hu shihi mitzvah osanu lihiyot b'dea al hashkafa. Yep.
That's midos, not deos.
This is in Arabic, so it doesn't really matter, but I think it means deos. Yeah, yeah. You'll see from his example, so he gives that as an example. So the first category is when God commands us to be of a certain opinion or to have a certain belief. Needs to be to be convinced of God's oneness. Okay, v'yirasa. It's funny he put that under deos because it's a cognitive, actions. Or prohibiting us from having a certain idea. Believing in other gods. Okay. There are also commandments on specific actions. Like commanding us on the bringing of korbanos or the building of the mikdash, and prohibiting us from certain behaviors. Like offering korbanos to someone other than God and bowing down to something that's worshipped other than Him. Yeah.
Well, isn't the first thing you said like the first area, wasn't that hashkafos?
That was hashkafos, yeah.
Okay.
And then the second one I just said.
Deos.
No. We're saying the midos are deos.
Oh,
yeah.
That he's putting in the category. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now here's
use the word dea in the first.
Yeah, because he uses the word dea there to mean belief. Yeah, confusing.
Okay,
yeah. All right, now here's our category. Mitzaveh osanu lihitnahig b'midos misuyamos. He commands us to conduct ourselves in specific midos. So he commands us, for example, in graciousness and mercy and compassion and love. That's like it says, the Taz here and prohibits us from certain midot. And that is, for example, prohibiting us against bearing a grudge and taking revenge and being a blood redeemer and other things like that from these bad midot that I'll explain. And then for the sake of completing, I'll read the last one. And he commands us in saying certain things, like commanding us to thank him. I assume that's Birkat Hamazon. To daven to him, and to confess our sins and other things like that. And prohibits us from saying certain things. Like on a false oath, and gossip, and lashon hara, and cursing and other things. So it's interesting here that the way he says it, and again, this is Arabic, so we can't, I don't know how much to read into this, but by midos, he said, he used v'ahavta l'recha kamocha. No, he's using v'ahavta l'recha kamocha. Yeah, it is weird. I mean, he only gave that one example, but what's weird about it is if you looked in the halachos of v'ahavta l'recha kamocha, you would see he's not commanding us to feel ahava, right? Because he can't really command on that. He's commanding us to do actions, to your friend the way we want to be treated. But it sounds like he's saying that the kiyum of the mitzvah is to actually have ahava.
Or it just mean, I mean, could behavior, could nida mean like a behavior? Like
a mode of behavior. That could be also. And the difference then, so then the question would be, how do you differentiate between that and a specific behavior? Yeah. And the answer would be that it's not specific.
Right.
It's a collection of behaviors. Yeah, right.
Could you just explain that?
Yeah, meaning that v'ahavta l'recha kamocha says you should love your fellow like yourself. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the halachos of it, this is what we did earlier in the year, that it really is commanding you in actions. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like the fact that the Rambam makes one category to be midos and the other one to be specific actions.
Mhm.
The question is, how do you like
do you
differentiate between them? The one way that I was differentiating just now is, in the one case, the mitzvah is the action, and in the other case, the mitzvah is do the actions to bring about a certain iyun, which is to acquire this feeling of
Which is what
ava.
we're talking about and putting in the category of Deos.
That's one possibility.
Okay.
And what Zeb's mentioning is that both of them are purely behavioral. The only difference is that in the one case it's a specific behavior, the other one it's like a constellation of behaviors, or like whatever, a pattern of behavior. Yeah. That midos are the collection of behaviors, and ma'as and mesuyan is a specific action, like bringing a korban. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he does use those same midos of chonein, chanun, rachim, yeah, that stuff, yeah. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up now is because of the question of what is the mitzvah of the halacha b'dracha, So, like, what is the mitzvah, right? So, it sounds, I know we're gonna unearth the body of this question, but yeah. What do you call it? But so the mitzvah is v'halakha b'drachav, and it's to, how do you say it in the end of Perek Aleph? To get the Deos. Mitzuven anu lalechas b'drachim elu habenonim v'hema drachim matovim ha'yisharim. Nemar v'halakha b'drachav. This is in 1.5. Well, 1 3. Yeah. So what is the mitzvah? Oh, and then at the end he also said, "Lahodiyash elu adrachim tovim v'yisharim v'hem v'chayv adam lahanhik atmo behen ulhidamut k'fi kocho." I mean, what you said is fine, that it's to engage in all the behaviors that God is described as, so that you resemble him action-wise, meaning you're doing the same actions as God is doing. Right. So now, how does that bear on your question?
Oh wait, I just have a question.
Yeah.
So I guess that
good hidden Rambam, right?
What?
It's good hidden Rambam, yeah. Very fundamental,
And
yeah.
I guess the problem is that what's the fetish of us where he says that you should act angry but not be angry inside?
Right. So that makes it sound like the mitzvah is to actually get the data.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But like what you said,
Like the internal change,
as opposed to just
as opposed to
behavior.
just the behaviors. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And the behaviors are means that. I just want to read one footnote, which I haven't read yet. Histaglus. Look at green. You have the green dictionary. Unless anyone knows what histaglus is.
Reveal.
Oh, I know. He's talking from Segula.
Oh, it's not.
Yeah, it was not. Sorry. Yeah.
Not reflexive.
It was revealed.
Yeah. Yeah. Histagel.
Being the most important vassal king.
It's to adapt himself to adjust.
Mhm.
So he says, this is on commenting on the word lekit naheg. That's how the Hebrew he translated it. And then the footnote he says, I can't read the Arabic. This does not just mean like general behavior and good midos. And it's raglus, habituating oneself, and histaglus, and accustoming oneself, the midos analos, in good midos, haku banu itkuna nafis, until it becomes like a trait of the soul. A part of our actual existence. So it's not like he is learning that you actually have to like change yourself through the behavior. It's not just acting the way God acts. It is acting the way God acts in order to change yourself to have this midah. So I just don't want to lose the thread. Why did I go here? What was the last thing you said? Do you remember about the dea of
I said that we should
define the dea?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we are going with this model that you are trying to get the dea of, we can't call it shtika, right? Of
the day of whatever he's talking about.
The day of whatever he's talking about, the day of halacha daled, right? And you need the dea to follow the prescription in Perek Aleph, which is do the actions corresponding to the dea in order to establish the dea. That's where we're at. That's where we're holding.
Wait, you're saying you can't do the behavior without doing the.
I'm saying that we can't get clarity in this halacha. I agree with Isaac. We can't get clarity in this halacha without knowing what dea we're trying to establish through the behaviors. And then my original question was like, what are you going to say the behavior is? Speaking when necessary? Like, or is that the dea itself? Like,
Right.
you
Now
can't-
we're saying it's the key.
right, and like again, and it is not like the other actions where you have where with the other deos, where with some of them you do have middle path, like actions. But yeah, what were we gonna ask?
Yeah, two things. First of all, just like methodological kind of
Yeah.
question, like what makes that a secret Rambam? Like,
Okay,
is it like
no
not
one-
source? or
No one
something?
learns the
Like,
shortcomings of the Sefer Mitzvot. Even when we did it, we didn't learn it. We just read through it. It's just not typically learned, because people don't care about what's a mitzvah and what's not.
I'm doing that right now. I'm only offering on time.
Oh, good. Yeah, I used to have a chavurah in that also, and Rabbi Fox used to give for a shiur on one of the Torah each year for many years, or I guess for 14 years. Yeah.
Yeah, and just also we just repeat. We were working with two different frameworks. Dev was saying that it's like the behavioral, but like motive, like meaning like the collective, like just like having like that general behavior versus doing a specific
Right. That's
behavior.
how he was differentiating.
And then
Right.
what was the other
And
thing?
then I'm saying it is there are mitzvahs that demand actions, pick up the lulav,
Right.
and then there are mitzvahs that
Demand feelings.
I don't want to say they demand feelings. They demand actions with the aim of producing an internal state, an internal feeling.
And that seems to be correct. Because,
That seems to be incorrect. I'm thinking it seems to be correct.
yeah, what you're saying is correct.
Yeah, what I'm saying is correct.
Yeah,
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah.
Which thing are you saying?
I'm saying the one that I think he is saying is that you're trying to produce the actual ahava, like you're trying to get actual ahava. But God can't command you feel ahava, so he has to command you do actions that promote
That
ahava.
will make you feel that.
Yeah, right.
What was the actual mitzvah? The mitzvah, my time, the mitzvah is.
This is here thing.
Yeah, the mitzvah is the halachta b'drachav, which we're saying is to or hidamus lo kafi koko, to become to resemble God according to your capacity.
In terms of what? In terms of behavior?
In terms of
I think we're not sure about how it is.
From there.
yeah.
The mitzvah.
So let's talk about v'ahavta kamocha, because I think it is confusing when you're talking about emulating God. But what is the mitzvah of v'ahavta kamocha? So what I'm saying is it is to do actions of love towards your fellow Jew in order to attain the quality of loving your fellow Jew. The iyun is to have the ahava, and the mitzvah is to do these actions of love. Yeah. Yes. The only complication is that the way that that's formulated is become similar to God, and God doesn't have the actual feelings. God's feelings, mahu nikra rachum apata heye rachum. So you're right. At the end of the day, it is to be merciful. It's to be merciful and to be gracious. You have to do the actions. Yeah. Right. Yeah. At some point. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I like this also, yeah.
Back and forth. Now we're saying it's have the actual data, not just to do the actual.
Right.
And doing the actual data, Rambam is saying will give you that data.
Right. Yeah. You know what this hidden Rambam was? Dea ex machina. Yeah. That's the Deus ex machina.
I'm doing
Okay,
this
fine.
myself. I mean,
Okay.
you could, but you don't feel yeah.
Okay, it's fine. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Question. So based on this framework now,
Yeah.
what would be an example of doing an action that will get you to acquiring this like this feeling of, or this
With silence or
with silence?
Yeah, that's what we're at now, I
That's
think.
that's around it.
By the way, that joke was an extra level that you might not have noticed. Deus refers to God.
Yeah. Oh, I did not notice that. Good call. Yeah. Okay. Would you call it like a literary technique or a plot device? Is it Deus ex machina, which means God out of the machine, I think literally, which is, let's say you have, I'm sure you've seen movies like this where like the plot's going along and like it's resolved by some like crazy supernatural external artificial thing that like just comes in and like solves everything,
Yeah.
So I was saying how like this Rambam is a dea or Deus ex. I should have said Deus ex machina. That would have been funnier, but yeah. Oh well. Yeah, that's true. Right. Yeah. Only for Ashkenazim. Yeah. Okay, so now we're back to trying to figure out what is the dea of
Or
overhauled.
what is the action that produces?
Well, so that's my follow-up question, which
No,
is
but one thing, what is the thing that
Oh, okay.
right, but you're right about the destination. The destination is at the end of this. We have to understand what is the dea, and then what actions correspond to the dea in a way that is actionable to acquire it. Meaning, when the Rambam says, "How do you acquire a dea?" You take the actions that correspond to the dea and you do them again and again and again and again until you get it.
The deas and what those actions
Right.
are that produce
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So I think the
Sorry, this is Rambam iyun shiur. This is not Rambam Bekius. Yeah, go ahead. I'm finally Moda. Yeah.
Gotta change the podcast
Yeah.
name now.
Yeah.
Call it wrong.
Yeah.
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 So I think that the like I said, the spectrum is being inclined towards speech and being inclined towards silence.
Okay.
And the middle is where you're making decisions, where you're not inclined towards either not saying anything or like saying something, and you just make a decision in each circumstance.
That was a long sentence. Say
Yeah,
in the middle again.
Where you're not inclined towards either end, but you just make a decision about whether it is a good time.
So it's like frugality in speech.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
And so
Isn't that necessary? Isn't that the necessary?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's slightly different because it's in terms of inclination. That's how he's putting the two extremes.
yeah,
Not in terms of
because
how much. Yeah.
Yeah, because the amount is an action.
It might be true for this also.
What?
Yeah.
Might be true for the money also. Maybe money
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Maybe it's an internal thing.
Yeah.
Myself. I don't think we know that was anything.
We right.
Another.
Yeah,
We
another.
got
We got the
another
extremes.
one.
We didn't get the another one, right? Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Oh.
Well, this one is unique in that, like as you were saying, it's less.
When it comes to
It's less in the middle than the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but like there's the thing about it's now it's spending that there's you can be inclined towards spending or inclined towards hoarding, but like the middle data is where you're not inclined towards either, but rather you're making an assessment in each situation,
Right.
and like
So this will be all deos then. It's all just inclinations, and then the actions are the ones that you're inclined towards.
yeah.
So dea is an inclination toward a behavior.
Yeah, is that just a simple definition of data we missed all those weeks?
Well, I guess you said this before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that like
We said a lot of stuff. Yeah.
putting too much faith in yourself? Like you could be inclined the wrong way. You could think that like something that is extreme is not extreme, but it's really extreme.
Itself is never wrong. No.
I'm sorry.
I mean, what?
What?
Hold on, too many questions. Wait, what did you just ask?
Like Isaac saying that like like you shouldn't be too inclined to too much. You shouldn't be too inclined to too little, and you should just like have the ability to just assess the situation and then just like see what's needed, or like just follow your inclination of like what you should do.
Which is how we defined chacham before.
Right, but we're also assuming that a chacham has good inclination, right? Like
No, we're right now assuming that the chacham has no inclination, right?
Yeah, yes, it's not you're doing what you're inclined to do. It's doing what your rational mind is telling you makes sense in the situation. You could be,
and that's not going to be wrong. Meaning, if you
So
actually
you can be wrong. Of course, you can be wrong. You're human. But
right, but the point is, if you actually don't have any kind of inclination towards one end of this, or towards either end of the spectrum, then like you're a lot more likely to be able to rationally make
yes,
a
right.
proper decision
Yeah,
for the middle
exactly.
ground.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
yeah, and he's describing what that type of behavior looks like.
Right, and like how to get
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. He's saying like the result is that you're most of the time not going to speak
Mhm.
because you're only gonna because
I see.
It doesn't, yeah. If you're thinking about, do I need to speak or not, then you're not going to do most speech where you're like just like talking just to have fun or something.
Right, but only if you're not inclined to do that.
Yeah,
Meaning, if you are inclined to talk about things that are just fun, then you might think, is this necessary? Is it not? And then you might like convince yourself it's necessary because you really want to do it. Meaning that only works if like you don't have this desire to talk about idle chat.
I wouldn't say it only works, but it
works better.
It worked better. Yeah.
yeah,
When you're in the middle path, if you're
yeah, but yeah.
having those information.
Yeah.
But I think the way that you do this is the way you do the middle path behavior is before you speak, you stop and think, is this necessary?
Oh, now we're taking another step to try to define the behavior.
Okay, fine,
Yeah, I mean that's fine. I just want.
I find my question. So
Okay, yeah.
I'm going to hear from way from so.
Okay. Yeah. So I'd say the behavior is you stop and think like let's say a person who's stopping and thinking about whether they need to talk about sports, even if they make the wrong assessment, they're at least like partially engaging like the middle path behavior, which is stopping and thinking about whether the speech is necessary or not.
So yeah, so my question is, are they assessing their like which way they're inclined, or are they just assessing the speech itself? Because like, or the thought itself. Like let's say somebody has a thought about a sport or something fun that they want to talk about. Like, are you saying, oh, it's not really necessary to say this, so I won't say it? Or are you saying, oh, it's not really necessary to say this, and I'm aware of the fact that I only want to say this because I'm inclined that way, so like I'm trying to not be inclined that way? Because if you say it's the first way, that like he's just saying, oh, well, it's not necessary, so I'm not gonna do it. I don't think that's gonna like what you were saying. I don't think that's gonna be enough to like actually change the way he speaks, like as like a meetup.
It does seem like the Rambam was saying that.
I'm saying that's what they're wrong. I'm talking about whether that's effective or not. I'm just.
Can I clarify? I'm just going I think something that's not necessary. Like, normally when you're gonna recognize, like, I want to say this, or it's not necessary, you can't like.
Okay. Maybe just to clarify things, because I think Isaac, you made a move, which is there are two. Okay, what is the action that corresponds to the middle data? Is the action only saying what's necessary, or is the action stopping and thinking? Yes, right. So that is different, and that gets out of the problem of before of not being able to identify any of the middle action, the actions for the middle Deios.
Why?
Because let's take with the money spending also is there's no action of frugality behaviorally. The action of frugality is stopping and thinking, is this money that needs to be spent or not? You know.
And that's what makes him a chacham.
That what makes him a chacham. Yeah. Yeah. And so just to reread the original source of this, when in Aleph Zayin 1, on page 119, is V'ketad yargil adam atmo b'deos elu ad sheyiku avubo. How does a person accustom himself to these deos to the point where they're established in him? Which, by the way, really sounds like Kafak's footnote about like what the mitzvah is. It's to accustom yourself until the deos are established in you, not just to act according to clusters of behavior. You know, Yasev Yishnev Yishalef. You should do the actions and do it again and a third time. But Maasim, in the actions, she'ose al pi hadeos hamtzayos, that you do in accordance with the middle deos. V'yachzor behen tamid, and go over them again and again, or constantly, ad sheyu ma'asehen palin alav, until their actions, the actions of the middle deos, are easy to you. Below yihiyah behem torah, and you don't have any toil in them. V'kavu hadeos v'nafsha, and the deos are established in your soul. So the actions of the deos that we're talking about here. So in this case, the action of the dea is stopping and deliberating about whether something is necessary to be said or not, and then saying it. Well, that's a good reading. Yeah, I think it's also good.
But weren't you saying that you don't think that the action of just stopping and deliberating and thinking before you speak is going to have this effect of...
Yeah, I'm still saying that I don't think that that's the best method.
But this
Rambam is saying,
Okay.
There's
like two things we're trying to figure out whether what the Rambam is holding.
It does seem like that's what Rambam said.
Right. Yeah. Right. And then this slightly changes our
Basically, like,
Well, that's why I said before that the Rambam did seem to be either behavioral or cognitive behavioral. Well, I would say I was saying cognitive behavioral for the refuas hanefesh part because
not. I think now.
Right now this is straight up like mishleh.
Wait.
In the sense that let's say stopping and deliberating about whether I need to say this or not.
Isn't that how
Yeah, but the reason why I was saying specifically the second parak is because your idea of the good is messed up, and you have to like reprogram your idea of the good, But I was going to say that this does lend itself to the interpretation we said before of what the Chachamim are doing, which is that you will not. Let's say, okay, an average person can stop and think, is it necessary for me to say this or not? Okay, and you could do that by yourself. But let's say you are addicted to speaking, okay, and so you think that everything you say is necessary. Then you need a chacham to sit down with you and show you, well, let's look and see what is actually necessary and what is not, and like, and then do that. Or I'll give another example. Like, let's say like there are definitely people who don't realize that they have a complaining problem, like that they're always complaining about stuff and they're not even aware that they're complaining. So that person might need to be taught like how to recognize what is the activity of complaining in order to be able to like isolate it and then to be able to tell whether or not they have it, or someone who's who thinks that like they can, let's say someone who's addicted to junk food and they just don't know enough about nutrition to like realize that they're damaging their bodies. They might need a chacham to like sit there and say, you can't just like put chips into your body and like turn out muscles and blood, right? Like, like I know the role of the chacham is going to be slightly different in each case, but it's necessary because they can't make this type of chachma assessment on their own. And so whatever tools are necessary for like doing that, whether it's mishlei or science or whatever, then the chacham will employ.
As opposed to just calling that person out for the thing they're doing. They're like, what do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything.
Right. Also, I think that what we're saying here in terms of whether you're using the Hilchos Deios definition of chacham, I don't know what I think about that now, but
Yeah.
I can see it going both ways, right? Because the chacham, he needs help from the person who's able to do this for themselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
That works.
You have to be.
Yeah. We can avoid that if we want.
I was gonna say,
Were you in the middle of saying something?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just that he needs to be able to deliberate himself.
Yeah.
Be able to help others.
Right. But it's more than just deliberating. It's also knowing whether he should do this. Yeah.
Right. Someone deliberates and makes the chacham. That's the
Right.
Holy message is something. What? No,
like let's say with spending, like if you actually not only deliberate before you spend, but you are capable of saying, is this something that needs money that needs to be spent or not?
Right.
That's not just deliberation. That's deliberation and knowing economics or personal, yeah. And same thing, yeah.
I'm just saying he's still called a chacham.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Not going. That yeah, the chacham he's going to is someone who has knowledge also. I'm assuming.
I was just saying that you don't even need to say that. I was saying like you just need to be able to go to someone who, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I regret bringing it up. Yeah, what are you saying?
yeah. So I think based on what we're saying, I think a chassid, it's like
yeah.
I think a chassid is someone who's going to be inclined more towards silence.
Yeah.
But not that he's going to speak less than necessary. He's still going to be assessing whether he needs to speak, and then saying what he needs.
Right.
So he's not. That's
Okay. So I'll support you.
Yeah.
If you look back at the definition of chassid, which we should know about that by now, in Hey 1, umishu midafil al asmo bioter v'yitrachek midea benonis ma'at l'tadeh l'tadeh. So he's deviating from the dea. Doesn't mean he's deviating in actions.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
He's inclined. Now, here's the thing, though. It's possible that in order to strike that balance, you will need to do actions that correspond closer to that dea. But that's just not what makes him a chassid. Meaning, he will. Let's say you are a chacham and you want to be a chassid in terms of speech. So you may need to, in certain cases where something is like necessary to say, to refrain, in order to be able to get your dea a little bit to that side.
Wait, why?
Because it sounds like the way to change your deos is to do actions that correspond to that dea. So if you're in the middle and you want to be to the left, you can't just like will yourself to like shift your daya, you have to do actions that correspond a little bit to the left of middle.
To the right.
No, I'm saying, well, whatever,
Okay.
right or left, to the side of silence.
Okay.
Yeah. Really interesting, by the way, just as a meta commentary here, it really is interesting how, like, our initial goal was to read the first parak and then get the Rambam system. And then we decided to read the second parak and just the first half of it to get the Rambam system. But you do see how, like, functionally, we did not understand the system until we read this. And presumably when we read more, it's going to be more. Like I initially said that he presents this whole system in the first two chapters, the first chapter and the first half of the second chapter, and that this is now just going to particulars. So it could be just that we're slow, but like certainly like I feel like I understand, like going into the silence thing made us understand all the stuff more. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah, if we didn't do that work earlier, then we would just be missing out everything here. But yeah. Woo.
Can I ask you a general question?
Yeah.
So it might be just a general thought.
Yeah.
But we're in Rambam's membership this morning. We were talking about whatever he had brought up, that there could be mitzvos that are not included in, like there are mitzvos deraisa that could not be included in.
Right, like is the famous ETS Mitzrayim.
Oh, he didn't mention that.
Or like mitzvah lahodia lebanim al mitzvah shalu.
Good one.
Like please, where the Rambam uses the word mitzvah, but he doesn't count it.
Yeah. Or usher or.
Right. Yeah.
No, but not only that it's like included in, not that it's like included in a larger mitzvah.
Oh, just like free floating.
Yeah, free floating.
Free radicals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he mentioned, like a ika, like being like covering her head.
Oh yeah.
So that's like not included in any other.
Yeah, that I don't think so. I think the Rambam would include it in everything and everywhere. And like in all the Taryag, I mean.
I don't know if it's like only Taryag, but
Say again?
That would be like its own mitzvah. I don't know if it's own.
I'm saying that he's either going to count it as his own mitzvah or it's going to be classed under another one. Like you see it's Mitzrayim, like under Kriyashma because it's part of your almost mind.
Right. Or well, let's say like I don't know, like shiur.
The hills. In what sense is that a mitzvah? I'll say. Yeah. I don't understand that.
Yeah,
Maybe I don't know what he means by mitzvah.
It came up in arguments and like Pesach. He talked about passing. I think it's. I think he just said you're doing the same issur. It's just not enough that you're getting a punishment. It's not if you chas shiur if you're over issur. It's not if you're over issur. Chas shiur, and then when you eat the other half, then you're now not over that first issur and over the.
Yeah, I don't think I know enough about the halachic system. Yeah, maybe I don't know if there's much more to say. But yeah, I don't. My understanding of the Rambam that doesn't fit into it. I think everything has to get into the Taryag. Yeah.
So where are we holding in terms of the like truth of what the Rambam is saying in terms of like this is the way to curse this day?
So now you're asking me about my opinion. Yes. Yeah, I still think that it's going to be. I don't think you can legislate this behaviorally. Like again, you tell a person the most you could do is get them to stop and oh no, listen to what I'm about to say. Gotta wait till the end of the sentence here. If you can, best you can do is get them to stop. But now, what are they going to do? So you want them to evaluate whether they should or shouldn't speak. Okay. But like that's just going to default to whatever speech habits they have. It's now they're stopping a little bit, So like,
if you think Yarba Shika is just going to lead to that result of you just deliberating, but then doing whatever you're doing. Yeah,
right. And I think you're going to end up on one of the extremes again. Still, like to really get them to get this middle daya. And to stay there, then you need to learn about speech as a sugya,
But if you like stop and build, well,
or you can say it's about all of them. Maybe it's about all of them.
Yeah, I think.
I
think you're saying it about all of them.
So maybe that's why he calls it chacham, because you need to learn Mishlei. Das chacham Musar.
No, you're not. Being in the middle isn't necessarily the same as being a chacham. Like it's not that you have. You're open to being a chacham, but you don't.
Yeah.
I understand. That's what I'm saying. So it's not that you have knowledge. Nikra chacham doesn't necessarily mean you have knowledge, but you're open to it.
Like this.
What am I saying?
Like you can't talk about that individually.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but
And I feel like you don't him like more I say like one different like that's good. I think you should do that. But you're also expecting that I'm like I think it's good.
Yeah, I mean that was the one thing I said last time we brought it up, that I do agree with the Rambam that behavior, you need the behavior, and this is where the might have been the Rambam, but I think it's going to be way harder if you don't change the behavior by force. But I'm saying that you need to combine the behaviors with the changing how you think about it and learning ideas and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you are constantly reminding yourself to deliberate, like doesn't that make it like isn't that well? Is that what you're supposed to do? Like keep like asking yourself like acting and being like, wait, no, I should deliberate, and then eventually that becomes more and more natural.
Yeah, I mean, it'll make the deliberation easier, but I'll give you an example of why I think you're going to end up on one side or the other. So like, let's say, just thinking about this morning with Mishlei and parenting, right? So like, let's say you have a micromanaging parent, okay? And the micromanaging parent will often do it through speech. So let's say the parent tries to practice this. So she's about to say something to her daughter, and she stops and deliberates. But now what's going to happen is the micromanaging part of her is going to then say like, but she needs to hear this, and then she'll do that, and then like, yeah, then next situation will come, so she'll deliberate, and it'll be, but I really should say this, like whatever emotion is driving the speech is going to just override the deliberation, and so the deliberation is not going to actually get you to the middle.
But aren't you better off doing that and having that pause?
Yeah, you're like a total vicious viado. You're better off in the sense that your potential for acquiring the dea is going to be better because you've habituated yourself to stop and think. So now all you need to do is learn how to think, and then you've already habituated yourself to stop.
Well, aren't you just closer to the middle dea?
I mean, I guess if you're defining the middle dea as deliberateness.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I think this can like get you like part of the way. Like it can, the extent that you're doing the dea because that's like just what you are like habitually doing. Stopping and thinking can help you change your habits.
Right.
But to the extent that it's like as a driven by an emotion, it's not like then this isn't going to help.
Right.
I don't want to unearth yet another thing, but maybe this is the same thing between the first part and the second part.
Go on.
That like to the extent that it's habit based, you can just like try to like stop and think about each thing.
Yeah.
Eventually, and like that'll like change your thinking. But if it's something where there's some sort of like deeper emotion that's pulling you towards something as opposed to just what you're doing, then you need to like work on that emotion in particular.
Yeah,
I hear that distinction. It's definitely possible.
I probably said that earlier today, but
yeah, we really needed a stenographer to like and to keep track of all of the but
go back, listen to
it. Yeah.
Someone sit there and stuff like that, like in photographic memory and
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we said the first part and second part is about like the value system.
Yeah.
But if we say it's not, if we say it's about like habitual pull versus rational pull versus habitual pull versus emotional pull, then I think this distinction makes sense.
Yeah.
Wait, it's interesting.
First and second pair. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You're saying that the first parak is just you have an instinctual pull toward one.
Yeah.
And the second parak is that you.
No.
The first one is you have a habit.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
instinctual pull. And the second one is that you have an emotional.
Emotional pull, yeah.
relationship to that.
Yeah, right. So with a habit, you could just reprogram through just atomic habits. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Did you get a mission Torah to look something up?
Yeah. It's like half a joke.
Okay,
This
that's fine.
morning we were in Rabbi Zimmer's here.
Yeah.
And we had found a sort of raya that he holds the raya fence.
Oh, yeah.
That he well, it's not yet, sort of a joke, but he says after la'adam lechavo bein ba'asmo bein l'chavero. So a person it's after for a person to be chovel himself
Like
or
to wound himself.
yeah,
Yeah.
himself. Lo v'chovolad ela blah blah ela where you can't whatever any even hit derech nitzayon hareza over below us.
Nitzayon.
Nitzayon like
Okay.
fighting like
Oh, like Shnei Anashim Nitzim.
yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, the raya is that one part of you is fighting with another part of you.
Clearly, you must hold by it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's stop here for today.
Well, to give you credit, you did say it was bad before you.
And you
started.
did the, yeah.